first time, long time edition of the Grip Strip podcast. I'm your host, Philip Matthew, coming back from a very busy weekend out of the house, uh, doing some interesting things. And as always, I'm back with my co host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar. And he decided to stay up and put himself through the whole entire Australian Grand Prix. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil, and yeah, I decided to punish myself somehow, if you want to call it that, and stay up and watch most of the F1 Grand Prix at Melbourne, Australia this past weekend, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, myself, doing great and everything, of course, including that F1 race, IndyCar, NASCAR, a lot of action across all of those, which we'll get into in a couple minutes. So yeah, ready to get into it, and also first time ever rocking the Dale Jr. Sun Drop shirt. So yeah, finally put that one on earlier. So it's a good shirt. Glad to have it.
Yeah, I mean it's you're a junior fan, so the fact is you finally have the Sundrop merch. That's good. I've been marking out for Junior since he became the announcer, Dale Jr. And then so I've been buying all his merch like one of those rabid fans that bought all of his diecast back in the day and basically has half their house full of them or whatever. Like a lot of them Junebug fans of yesteryear, but for me, I'm rocking my because I volunteered for the Special Olympics bowling tournament this past weekend, so I'm rocking the shirt for that. It was cool to watch those athletes go out there. Some of them could really bowl, I'll tell you. Put me to shame for sure. And they are having fun. Speaking of having fun, is Joseph Newgarden after a bad St. Pete season opener, he goes back out and does what he usually does, which is win at Texas and beats Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou. Those three drivers dominated the show. We'll get into that race and the point standings as they will be going to Long Beach here in a couple weeks' time. Cup and Xfinity were at Richmond, and Kyle Larson continues the Hendrick momentum early in the season. Byron, whether he has Rudy Fugle or not, has probably been the best driver this season early on. Led the most laps yesterday, and then got summarily sent by Christopher Bell late in the race. But whatever, it's fine. Second place was Josh Berry in the 9 car, so his best career finish in the Cup Series. He didn't want to move his teammate. Didn't really get a great restart on the last one, but we'll get into all that in the Cup race. It was Hendrick and Gibbs' benefit, like it has been for many years there. Chandler Smith earned his first Xfinity win, a race where I kind of thought Josh Berry was going to win. It looked like he was in position to on the long run. Then the caution started to come out. Jeremy Clemens decided to stop in the middle of pit road instead of pulling into the back garage area where it wouldn't have mattered. He'd have been off the racetrack. That kind of affected the entire race there. Chandler Smith also thanked his smoking hot wife in his post on his front stretch interview. So credit to him on that. Maybe he'll start putting her name as Smoking Hot Wife in his phone, just like Joey Logano. Yeah, and Allgaier gets a dash for cash. So we'll get into all that with the Xfinity. The Truck Series was Nick Sanchez dominating on Saturday evening at Texas, leading all but 4 laps of the race, only to end up getting wrecked by Carson Hocevar on the final lap, taking out not only Sanchez, but Zane Smith and Christian Eckes. So the two guys that have 2 regulars that have won so far this year, and then a guy in Sanchez who now he had a chance to win at Atlanta, dominates this race. Kyle Busch Motorsports Equipment up there. Purdy, his pseudo teammate, ends up benefiting as well, but Carson Hocevar gets his first victory in full Ross Chastain style. Fish Lips won, of course, at Australia, but who finished second was a surprise, relatively, compared to where he has been the last year or so. His name is Sir Lewis Hamilton, getting up there. And Fred Alonso gets yet another third place finish. So consistency reigning there. The 3 red flags marred the race. Probably, I guess Michael Massey might have snuck into the steward's room again, because the way they ran that race on late Saturday night our time, or late or early Sunday morning our time here on the East Coast. It looked like Michael Massey was back in the control of the series because of how bad it was run. And getting all that and all the race and all the key players outside of those 3. The roundup is pretty tight and simple. F2 and F3 last week at Albert Park, along with the Supercars. If you drive a Chevy Camaro in the Supercars Championship, I think you're in good shape. MotoGP and Moto2 are in Argentina, and the Winter Nationals is basically in the spring now, took place at Pomona. We will we'll preview and make picks for Bristol Dirt, Cup, and Trucks, the only race on the docket here for Easter weekend. Also understanding that they're going against the tradition unlike any other. That's what I've usually called it for the week of the Masters, but I wasn't in that mode. But maybe we'll see, depending on who wins on Sunday or whenever the Masters ends, because of the amount of rain they're going to have this week. We'll talk about make their preview and picks. Josh will talk about his exploits on iRacing and other gaming in the Sim segment. Did some Gen 4 Cup racing last week, so get into that, and we'll close the deal. So first, we will go with the IndyCar series, which took place at Texas Motor Speedway, and for what it is, one of the worst racetracks ever made. For once, it actually put on a decent show for the first time. I think it's probably the first time since they redid the arrow. They put the common arrow on the IndyCar. This whatever the IR 18 or whatever iteration. That might be probably the best race they've had there at Texas in a while. Likely because they went to resin instead of the full-on grip strip. They also went and they didn't have as much of the PJ1 spray. I think they spent more time trying to make sure the PJ1 spray wore off, and they bedded in the track a lot better. So in all in all, it was a good race, and it definitely it was dominated by 3 guys. It was dominated by the winner, of course, Joseph Newgarden, but Pato O'Ward gets a consecutive second place finish. So 2 seconds to start the year, had a chance to win this race, and leaves with the points, still has the points lead, or takes the points lead going to Long Beach. And so that was a good, and Alex Palou in his lame duck year goes and gets a third place finish there. So let's see here. Bring the race results up. We'll get in just over 2 hours for a race that was 250 laps at Texas. That's pretty good. And that's after, and what is it? 20% of the race was run under yellow too. That's crazy. That makes it even crazier. I mean, they measure Texas Motor Speedway in the IndyCar as 1.44 miles, right down to the nth degree, right there to give you all the accuracy. Joseph Newgarden wins over Pato O'Ward by 1.28 seconds. Alex Palou was 0.6 behind O'Ward. David Malukas finished 4th, and Scott Dixon finished 5th. As Scott McLaughlin, who had done well at this race last year, dominated, ended up finishing 6th, and Colton Herta was the last car on the lead lap in 7th in his first race without his dad on the timing stand as his what do you call strategist, because they swapped his and Kyle Kirkwood's strategist around. Marcus Ericsson, the winner at St. Pete, was 8th, Callum Ilott 9th, and Elio Castro Neves was 10th. Go through here. Augustin Canapino, the teammate of Callum Ilott, in his first oval race, finished one lap down in 12th, ahead of Ed Carpenter, a very experienced driver on ovals in his first race of the season. Will Power was 2 laps down in 16th. The Ray Hall cars were basically all trash. Yesterday, Harvey and Lundgaard finished 3 laps down in 18th, 19th, and Ray Hall got taken out by Devlin DeFrancesco. I mean, why wouldn't he? It's Devlin DeFrancesco. I mean, he caused a stupid wreck there last year. Kyle Kirkwood last year had led laps and then crashed out of the race. This year, he didn't lead laps and he crashed out of the race. I don't think, leader something. So he didn't even lead this year. And then Felix Rosenquist had qualified on pole and ended up wrecking. And was it the total to 11? Yeah, Sasato wrecked his car after starting in the top 10. Yeah, 6 in turn 4. So the amount of laps they spend trying to clear up. I mean, for one car crashes to spend 12 and 14 laps under yellow is pretty bad, but whatever. I mean, but for Joseph Newgarden, great recovery for him to, after what was a rare, misstep for him at St. Pete, not having a great run and getting himself right back in the mix early in the season. Because now they're going to have a little bit of momentum going. It's the right time to go and get this win, get back on track. Because now they're going to be running Long Beach. They're going to run Bar Baba, which is one of his best racetracks, basically his home game. It was Pato's home game yesterday, and I think he had the most fans there by far. I don't think it was hard to tell who had the most fans. He had his whole entire front of his truck was full of fans prior to the race, let alone there was a whole entire grandstand committed to Pato Award fans. So as a Pato Award fan, that's pretty cool. Didn't get the win, but you end up finishing second, getting the points lead. Palou, the champion 2 years ago, looking more like the guy that won the championship 2 years ago than the guy that was out there last year. Malukas proving once again his oval prowess after running so well at Gateway last summer, coming out on the big oval and putting in a great performance there. And but I mean, that's something to look at, especially for Indy. And then Scott Dixon doing Scott Dixon things. And to be right in position this early in the season, usually one has to come back in points after early season mishaps. To be third in points after 2 races might be a problem for everybody else in his drive for 7. But Joseph Newgarden, Josh, ends up getting that victory, and Pato Award showing maturity in a sense when he could have went for the win, but I think Newgarden had him covered, and he took what was the best finish he could get and decided, I'm going to fight for another day and keep it clean because we'll need this piece for Indy here in a month's time or whatever, 6 weeks' time. So that's what they were thinking there at Arrow McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, for Joseph Newgarden, just the way he dominated this race, and then also Pato, both of them as well. I mean, they led a majority of this race. Newgarden leading 123 laps. Pato led 91 laps. You talk about Indy and, getting ready for that. I think early on, like going into the month of May, I think you have to consider them both to be pretty good favorites to potentially win the race, or be up there potentially. And Newgarden dominated thoroughly, and he had the best car. Was able to navigate through traffic like a knife through butter. Pato was able to keep up with him. So I think they have a lot of potential for being the favorites at the Indy 500. And look at last year, McLaren, Indy 500. They couldn't make the pass, the winning pass, because they didn't have enough downforce compared to they were already trimmed out compared to Ganassi. And this race, they looked like they were able to make really good passes in traffic, and Pato was able to keep up with Newgarden there. And I think if the last caution didn't come out with Grosjean spinning out into the wall off turn 2, I think Pato probably has a shot to win this race. I think he was setting up for the winning move. You look on the last 2 laps of that race, they finished on the green. Pato was up high, and then Newgarden inched ahead, and then Pato on the backstretch fell back in line to right behind him, and he was right in his draft backstretch, getting ready to swing out back to the outside. I think coming to the white flag, but then of course Grosjean spun out, crashed, so finished under yellow. So still though a great race though in my opinion. Probably one of the better Texas races we've seen in a long time, and I 100% think it's because of the resin that they used. And also, they changed the package a little bit on the IndyCar for the IR18. Put in, I think they put in a little bit more downforce on the cars, so they were able to really hang tight on the outside. I read. I guess the drivers were inspired by Jimmy Johnson last year trying the high line and being able to make it work. And I guess that gives them. You see, a 7-time guy win it in a successful Texas winner, gives them more confidence that that they are able to do it themselves. And so that's what you saw a lot of on Sunday, is guys taking it 3 wide and being able to make it work. And there was a couple times I was pretty nervous about like them going 3 wide, especially going up into the former grip strip up there on turns 1 and 2, and even 3 and 4. Like that traditionally has been a very slick area, and it still was. We saw that with Takuma Sato early on in the race, still was a little bit, but in the center of the corner, it seemed like as long as you didn't get too far up there, it was still somewhat raceable, and saw a lot of that throughout the race. So a lot of side by side action throughout of that, and that's what we like to see. In oval racing with IndyCar, and that's what you like to see, especially Texas, as maligned as it is. I mean, the fact that they're still racing there, don't want to like not see a good race. So they are able to make it work, and we saw fairly entertaining race. Most lead changes for a non IndyCar race on an oval, since 2017. So shows when the package is right and when they get the track right, when they prep it right, you can have good racing, and that's what we saw a lot of on Sunday. And hopefully we see that type of. Well, I mean, it's gonna be different at Indianapolis, of course, but hopefully they're as competitive as they were here at Indianapolis. But overall, great weekend of racing for the Indy cars. And as much as the lull that we had from this race back to St. Pete now a month ago, they have a lot of momentum. If the fact that it was a really good race, if it weren't a good race and it was a boring, then IndyCar would have lost momentum. But now that they have had 2 really good, entertaining races to start the season, gives them a little bit of momentum in the PR department, and they can use these races as more marketing for themselves, and definitely help grow the fan base. And I think definitely a lot of fans at this Texas race compared to last year, and definitely think help improve later on, and the season and the future for Texas.
Yeah, I think they're gonna stay there, as it sounds like. And I mean, they keep on talking about, the rumors about different ovals going to different places. You made a post earlier on your Twitter feed. I think I commented on another person's post last week or during the weekend in regards to other ovals they should be looking at. I mean, it's something where Texas Motor Speedway, they're talking about possibly doing a reconfigure and a repave, which would hurt IndyCar more than NASCAR, really. Um, but considering how crappy the track is, the fact that they actually had a good race is something. So take it for what it is. It's the only oval they'll have prior to the Indianapolis 500 and practice and qualifying the whole bit. So for those who made it through unscathed and actually ran well, that's a good thing. For the ones that didn't, for the likes of uh, Ray Hall, DeFrancesco, Stingray Robb, Rosenquist, Kirkwood, and Sato, I think all those teams are kind of licking their wounds. I mean, Andretti losing two of their cars. The Ray Hall team being complete garbage the whole entire weekend there. And then like that's where you have to go back to the drawing board and say, oh, what happened here? What can we do? That Catherine Legg doing a refresher earlier today, and but it's a good thing they only have 33 cars, because if there was actually bumping for the Indianapolis 500, I have a feeling that as of now, the Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan team would be in deep trouble. I think they're going to have to get rid of that stupid bump day thing like they've had the last few years as well. Just, the qualifying should be strictly, they'll have everyone do their 4-lap run for whatever position, and then whoever actually is in contention to try to get back into the Fast 9 or whatever. I think they can even change it. Instead of having that back row deal, you could just make it the Fast 11. So the first third of the field goes and runs, make it an equal deal. It doesn't sound like an equal number, but it's 1/3 of the field. You get 33 starters. The top third gets to go and have a chance at pole. But I doubt that'll happen. Points, as I mentioned, going to Long Beach here a couple weeks' time. Pato Award on strength of 2 second-place finishes is the points leader, takes over the points lead from Marcus Ericsson, the St. Pete winner. Scott Dixon, 2 top 5 finishes so far this year, puts him in third. Newgarden's win moves him up to fourth, 1 point behind Dixon. Alex Palou has finished in the top 10 in both races, same as his teammate Ericsson. And he is fifth, so 3 Ganassi cars in the top 5. David Malukas has finished in the top 10 in both races so far and is in sixth. So Hondas have 4 out of the top 6 in points. Callum Ilott, 2 top 5 and 2 top 10s. He is 7th, 1 point behind Malukas. Scott McLaughlin 8th, Rossi 9th, and Will Power rounds out the top 10. Canapino has had 2 consecutive 12th place finishes, and he's actually 12th in points. Colton Herta is just behind Power there, 3 points behind. So those are the points. We'll get back to IndyCar for the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, as I said, in 2 weeks. The next order of business is, of course, NASCAR, and the Cup and the Xfinity Series. The Cup Series Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond International Raceway. They've taken out the International out of all of the ISC tracks, which is nonsense, but I always know it as Richmond International Raceway. Saw Kyle Larson lead 93 laps, 4 times for 93 laps. Has got solid stage points in both stages, and was able to fade the likes of William Byron and others late in the race to get his first victory of the 2023 season. His teammate Josh Berry in the Napa Chevy gets his best career Cup Series finish in second. Ross Chastain finished third. Christopher Bell fourth. Kevin Harvick with fifth place finish. Michael McDowell, sixth. Joey Logano, seventh. Alex Bowman, eighth. Keebler Gibbs, ninth. Brad Keselowski, 10th. Martin Truex, who led 56 laps, ended up 11th. Chase Briscoe actually got a stage point there and finished 12th, so one of his better finishes of the year. Almirola from 32nd finished 13th. Kyle Busch started second but fell back. Todd Gilliland, 3 consecutive top 15 finishes for him, so maybe he's not so bad, but he doesn't have any money. The only person that was out of the race was Gagson because he hit the wall. Otherwise, it's so for lap 30. It says lap 303, but it says 307 to 312 was a caution. I guess he was already laps down. Okay, yeah. So that was that. I mean, essentially the way the strategy had ran and the way things had gone early in the first portion of the race, it was William Byron and Denny Hamlin were up there. Then you had Truex after those two guys in the third stage, but tires strategy did not go in his favor late, and the fact that it was a short run versus a long run. But the Hendrick cars have been fast all year, and it continues yet again with Larson getting his first win of the year. Bowman getting another top 10 finish, increasing his points lead. I say increasing. I mean, it's only 4 points, but still, he's still the points leader because of something that took place after we did our show last week. We'll get into that. They rescinded the penalty that Hendrick Motorsports. They got rid of the points penalty. They gave him back the points, kept the fine and the suspension. I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you give them the points back but not the other stuff? Why don't you just go and cut the monetary fine down and give them the crew chiefs back? That's my thought. It doesn't really matter one way or the other. Hendrick has proven it doesn't matter who their crew chief is. Chad can also get suspended at least once a year. And Jimmy Johnson still won races. Jeff Gordon would have whatever. Letarte gets suspended. He still won. I mean, come on. Does it really matter with Hendrick Motorsports? We could go up there and crew chief for Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, I know you'd do fine, just fine with it, with the computer and all the other technology. So it's really me. I would just be sitting there getting drunk, and I could go and do a Harry Hogg impression, and I could eat ice cream, and we'd still win. So Kyle Larson, somebody who'd be working at an ice cream stand or a Tilt-A-Whirl if he couldn't drive a race car, gets another victory. I think what was his 20? What is it? His 20th victory in the Cup Series. Yeah, so that's it took him a long time to finally get his first Cup Series win, and then he started winning, and then of course 2 years ago he won 10 races on his way to his Cup championship. So now Kyle Larson has 20 career Cup Series wins. Nice, solid number, but he's definitely going to keep on doing more with that, Josh.
Yeah, of course, Kyle Larson finally winning this year. Of course, Phoenix gave that away, and of course, with Las Vegas, they were up there and had a chance to win, but then they, got screwed over by one of the yellows late in that race. Now they finally win here at Richmond, and yeah, of course, like you said, the crew chiefs doesn't matter. Even though they are suspended, of course, they're communicating remotely, to the teams, through Microsoft Teams, video chat, whatever. So, that's how teams are able to get around those suspensions and everything. So, it's just up to the guy in the box to make the strategy calls. But as far setups and everything like that, the real crew chief can still contribute a lot, even if they're not physically present at the racetrack. But yeah, it's interesting on the penalties part. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to agree about how the penalty should be levied. And of course, anonymously, a lot of the crew chiefs in the garage, there's a report from The Athletic talking about how the comments that they made anonymously about the situation, and like, well, this just seems like anything goes now, etc. Are they just not going to do anything about these penalties? So yeah, it's pretty interesting there on the penalties, but Hendrick's still doing well regardless. I mean, I think the most impressive out of those is Josh Berry for sure. He's been doing pretty solidly in the Cup, but he was up in the top 10, for most of this race. Of course, got spun out by Ryan Blaney in the middle of it, so it was a caution, but he was able to come back and get into the lead on part of the pit cycle and get lead laps, and kind of had a shot to win there at the end, honestly. Like, I thought maybe he might be able to get up there and challenge Kyle Larson for the win, but I think, Larson just had better handling car on fresh tires than Josh Berry did, and I think, the run itself to the checkered flag, only 14 laps, which really, unless, like, you have really good short handle or short run car, I think Richmond is one of those short tracks that takes several laps really to really get up there and try to make something happen. So I think Josh Berry, very impressive second place finish there, and honestly, if he won, I would put in a lot of questions. If what do they do now with him? Like, is it gonna be like his 2021 season where he won a handful of races and then had to like jump between cars to maintain points in the point standings or something like that? So that'd be pretty interesting if that had happened. But still, yeah, very impressive run. Of course, Larson was up there, and I think Larson was kind of, him winning was very beneficiary of what happened to William Byron, because I honestly thought William Byron was going to win this race. Just looking at the standings, he seemed like he had the best handling car all day until the end. He, just I think they just got behind on their pit stop, and then got spun out by Chris Bell there at the end of the race. So Byron, I think he had the best car, but they just didn't capitalize. So kind of the opposite of what has happened to him the last couple of weeks with him being still successful. So we'll see if they're able to continue on with their speed. But yeah, Hendrick overall still performing really strongly this first part of the year, and of course not looking like they're going to slow down anytime soon. And of course, on the incident with Byron and Chris Bell, post race, Chris Bell blaming Ross Chastain for taking them three wide, and I guess Chris Bell got loose and got into Will Byron there. So yeah, I think that's a little bit too much, I guess. I think he's maybe going a little bit too hard there on Ross. I don't think Ross did anything wrong in that situation. I'm also a believer in, you got to be able to control your race and be able to race around the other people, not the depend on the other people to do their job and everything. And of course, Ross put him three wide, but Chris Bell got loose and then gets into William Byron. I think that's William Byron's fault there, or Chris Bell's fault there. So, I don't think he needs to just go over the top and just start blaming Chastain because he's the easy guy to blame because of his history and everything. So, Chris Bell's still finishing fourth and Chastain third. So they're still, both of them still doing pretty well in this series. And surprising finish also for Michael McDowell, finishing sixth place, getting another. I mean, they finished 11th last week at Coda, and now they go to finish sixth place. So some of these tracks, yeah, definitely good for the Bob Jenkins organization, Front Row Motorsports, and everything. So good result there. BK finishing 10th, also pretty good result there. Truex in 11th, led a bunch of laps and probably could have been up there, but I think he just got screwed over on the last couple of restarts, and I think probably would have won maybe if the race had gone green the rest of the way after he took the lead from I think 50 laps ago, took the lead from William Byron late in the race. So probably could have happened, but you know last caution coming out with Tyler Reddick 20 laps to go kind of changed everything, and then the stuff with Byron and Bell. So yeah, definitely. I mean, not a lot of like wrecks or anything like that. Of course, Hamlin getting into it with JJ Haley accidentally, apparently. But still a lot of strategy in this race. Think the low downforce package definitely showed evidence of it working, but still, I think the only real way to improve short track racing is to be able to give them more horsepower, and which probably won't happen. But still, talk of doing the grooved tires thing, which I'm curious to see how that would work out as far as changing the ability of the cars to have grip, mechanical grip on the racetrack. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, not too much happened, but enough happened to say that it was a fairly solid race in terms of the actual racing bit at Richmond for Cup Series.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, for Hendrick Motorsports, yeah, definitely um, was they it was Hendrick and Gibbs and Larson. It's not surprising winning at Richmond for him. It's one of his better racetracks, of course. Barry going out there, his two best finishes have been on the two smallest tracks that they've run during his time in the car. And he's a short track racer at the core, so not so surprising for him. Um, but it's good to see, and it kind of speaks to his viability long term in his desire to get into Cup at some point, and learning how to drive this new car and adjust his driving style to that is a solid thing. I don't know if it's really helping him in the Xfinity series, to be fair, but it's something where you just kind of have to go with the flow and know know that it's I mean you're it's a moving target with this car. I'm curious. I definitely would like to see him run a car at the All Star race at North Wilkesboro, because that would be insane to see him do that. I mean, they're going to run Martinsville next in 2 weeks' time, and that's a track he's won at in an Xfinity car. Is a track he's won at in a late model. He's so if they're in Hendrick Motorsports, it's a track they've won at more than anybody else, I think. So could be the perfect storm there, as Josh was talking about with Barry winning. Since we don't know when William Clyde Elliott is going to come back yet. Not Yeah, as it stands right now, the overall points leader is Alex Bowman, and he's up by 4 points on Ross Chastain. Christopher Bell is third, and the gap from third to eighth, which is Kyle Busch, is only 14 points. So that's really close there. Bell, Byron, Harvick, Larson, Logano, Kyle Busch. All but, well, Bell and Harvick haven't won yet this season. As in the overall points, 4 out of the top 5 have not won a race this season, but I figure that'll change. There's been 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 different winners to start the year. Yeah, 6 different winners in 7 races. So it's kind of has a similar feel to last year when there was 19 different winners in 2022. Martin Truex, Brad Keselowski round out the top 10. Blaney, Hamlin, Reddick, Cindric, Buescher, and Stenhouse round out the 16. Of course, Stenhouse won the Daytona 500. And, Richard. Buescher, in theory, is the bump spot, and he has a 6-point lead on Daniel Suarez, and he has an 8-point lead on Michael McDowell, 9 on Corey LaJoie. So Corey LaJoie lost the spot in points after rough day. Got jumped by McDowell there. That'll be interesting as the season goes on. Gilliland having to separate or go and run 3 different cars this season is 23rd in points, so he's ahead of Austin Dillon, AJ Allmendinger, Almirola, Parise, amongst others. So that's that. They'll be running on the Bristol Dirt here this Sunday, on Easter Sunday. In the Xfinity Series, it was Chandler Smith who had led the most laps in the Toyota owners, or no, not Toyota, in the Toyota Care 250. And he goes out and gets that, wins stage 1, led the most laps in the race. It was essentially 5 drivers had a good amount of the laps led there. Bruckshot Jones and Riley Herbst were up front most of the day, but then both of them ended up falling back late. Only one car fell out of this race as well. Anthony Alfredo with an accident, lap 140. 144 it says, but they don't show. You say stage conclusion, stage 2 conclusion. 98 and 9. Yeah, the 98 and the 9. So they crashed into each other. And so I don't know where it says accident, but it doesn't show in the recap. Chandler Smith gets his first career Xfinity Series win over John Hunter Nemechek, Josh Berry, Kaz Gralla, and Cole Custer. Sheldon Creed, Ryan Sieg, Parker Kligerman, Austin Hill, and Derek Kraus running the 10 for Kaulig. Gets in there and finishes 10th. Alex LeBay from 32nd finished 11th. Jeb Burton, 12th. Allgaier started on pole, had issues. 13th, Chris Hacker in his Xfinity debut finished 14th. And Brian Ellis rounds out the top 15. The vast majority of the laps, as I said, 5 drivers. It was Chandler Smith with 83 led, Josh Berry with 63, Sammy Smith with 40 laps. Was it Bruckshot Jones with 24 led, and Herbst with 27 led. And it was pretty straightforward in the sense that Chandler Smith was able to go and lead in the late in that first stage to get the stage win. Then he ended up going out and after that and trading the lead with the likes of Josh Berry and Jones and then John Hunter Nemechek. But in the end, Chandler Smith goes and gets his first career victory, made his Cup Series debut yesterday as well. So big weekend for Chandler Smith, solidifies himself in the championship points to get to the playoffs. He's only the 4th regular driver to win so far this year. 6 races, and that's so 6 of the 7 races have been won by Xfinity regulars. Trying to go and see the other one, of course, is AJ Allmendinger last week at COTA. But yeah, Chandler Smith goes out there, thanks his smoking hot wife, Josh, and amongst other things he said on his post-race interview, but he's one of the better talents in this sport, and he had unfortunate situation at Daytona trying to make the 500, but he has recovered in a way and made the most out of the situation, and he's a winner in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, he's a winner in the Xfinity Series. Chandler Smith has kind of been a long time coming for him here in just this short season because he had a great run at Las Vegas last month and probably should have won that one, but came up short and finished 3rd. And, he had 3 top fives this year as well. So finally converting that one into a victory here in this race. Of course, led bunch of it early in the race, but he was able to pull through at the end and pulled away from John Hunter Nemechek on the last restart. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big win for him, of course, first career win, and definitely, I think he'll be here for a while in the Xfinity Series. Potentially, I don't know when he'd move up, but I definitely think maybe another season in the Xfinity, he'll be right up there in Cup Series. But yeah, he definitely had a good win. Of course, raced against John Hunter Nemechek, fighting for the win. John Hunter getting third consecutive finish in second place at Richmond. So just so close once again for John Hunter to get the win. Yeah, so I mean, solid racing overall. Yeah, I think John Hunter. I mean, he's already won, so it's okay, I guess. But still needs to be able to convert that one into win at this racetrack. Josh Berry, of course, you talked about him early, and I definitely think he had a lot of influence from this run and the Xfinity Series, and then be able to carry it over into the Cup Series, of course. And he had a good car too. He led 63 laps, and he was out front. And then a bunch of cautions happened. 65 laps ago, started having some more cautions in this race. So definitely, was affected by that. And think if he didn't have those cautions to worry about, probably could be talking about him as a race winner, of course. And you talked about other guys in the top 10. Kaz Grala, I mean, that's a pretty good run there as well. And you actually, I mean, you've been pretty solid with the picks lately in the Xfinity somehow. And John Hunter, I mean, of course, John Hunter didn't win, but he got top 5, finished second. Kaz Grala, was your wild card pick as well, and he finished in 4th. So it's pretty strong effort on their end and everything. So yeah, I mean, good race in Xfinity on Saturday. Of course, yeah, like to see new winner in this series, and of course, somebody I think that we expect to be a competitive driver in this series. For the next year, maybe the next season. So yeah, definitely a good result. And then I think also talk about the top 5, the other top 5 guy that finished, Cole Custer. He hasn't had a great start to this season so far in his return to Xfinity Series, but you finally got a top 5 here in this race, so definitely a good result. Try to turn things around, which looks like maybe he's on that track. So yeah, definitely a solid result for a lot of these Xfinity regulars here this weekend at Richmond.
Yeah, and they take the week off for Easter before they come back at Martinsville in a couple weeks' time. And I think that's a Saturday afternoon race. I believe. Just go back and check it to be completely sure. The qualifying, yeah. Oh no, it's a Saturday evening race or Saturday evening race at Martinsville on the 15th. though, so that's my mom's birthday. So yep, so went through that. There was only one car fill up, and we'll get into the points. Austin Hill, of course, still leads the points. He's 12 points ahead of Riley Herbst, 18 ahead of John Hunter Nemechek. Chandler Smith moves up to 4th. Josh Berry gains 4 spots in points this week with his solid run, and is now 5th in points. Justin Allgaier 6th, Sheldon Creed 7th, Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, Cole Custer, your top 10. Daniel Hemrick and Parker Kligerman still round out the 12. Ryan Sieg is 13 points out of the cutoff. And Brockshot Jones is 27. And 39 points back is Jeb Burton in 15th. So those are the next 3 people that are in the mix. Kaz Grala moves up to 20th in points with his top 5 finish. So that's the points right there. We'll reconvene at Martinsville in a couple Saturdays. Can Austin Hill keep his run going? Can somebody else get a victory? Of course, Josh Berry won his first career Xfinity race at Martinsville, and Riley Herbst has never won an Xfinity race. He never won a truck race either. So John Hunter driving for Gibbs, they should have good race cars. Same for Sammy Smith. Sheldon Creed still looking for that first Xfinity win amongst other people there. So that was that at Richmond. We'll get into the Speedy Cash 250 at Texas Motor Speedway now, which was essentially Nick Sanchez. Started on pole, won both stages, led all but 4 laps of the race, only to get junked on the final lap there. And it's a matter of time for him to actually come through and finally win a race, I think, here in the Truck Series. My pick in our picks pool was Grant Infinger, and he finished right behind Nick Sanchez. So take it for what you will on that. Carson Hocevar sends those guys and gets his first win. Chase Purdy gets his best career finish in second. Stuart Friesen, who was my wild card pick, finished third. Ty Majeski fourth. Jake Garcia gets his first career top 5 finish. Miss Hummer 2.0 finished 6th from 25th. Corey Heim 7th. Ryan Vargas from 26th finished 8th. Jack Wood 9th. And Ben Rhodes rounded out the top 10. There was 15 trucks on the lead lap. Both Zane Smith and Christian Eckes were able to get their trucks rolling and come back to the checkered. They were involved in that last lap incident and that was with help from Hocevar, and Hocevar finally gets his first career Truck Series victory. And it wasn't surprising when you get to that point for where Carson Hocevar, he's been so close, he wanted to close the deal, and he did, and he stayed in it and said, whatever it takes. So if I have to clean him out, then I have to clean him out. And that I made a comment in one of the pages or one of the Twitter feeds I follow that, he's learning from his mentor how to win races, and that's how Chastain has kind of set the tone and how he does things. And but maybe now Hocevar, with the pressure off of not winning, finally getting that first win, might help Nice Motorsports out in general in building better race trucks as they get towards the playoffs. Give Hocevar more time to possibly win another race. All those other perks. But that right now, I think what people have to look at, and I think the real story of the race was Nick Sanchez and his domination, the defending ARCA Series champion. 5 races in, has had a second, was basically going to win this one, and was qualified on pole, I think, twice already this year. So, they are fast every week, and it speaks to how good that effort is, even though it's a downsized Kyle Busch Motorsports outfit, albeit they run it out of Rev Racing. It's named with Rev Racing, but it's a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck. And that's the thing here. Credit to Carson Hocevar for his first career victory. I guess it wouldn't have happened any other way. He cleaned out somebody to do it, but at that point, it's the final lap of the race, so they say, boys, have at it, and that's what he did.
Yeah, of course, boys have at it and have a good time, right? No, that's what Robin Pemberton said back in the day in 2010. But, Nick Sanchez, Zane Smith getting into it coming onto the final lap, and then Nick Sanchez came back across into the path of Carson Hocevar, and Carson didn't lift. He just kept it to the floor and kept on going and made contact and kept on going and picked up the win, which I guess that's how you got to do it these days to get your first win somehow. So, I think he's been so close so many times, and I guess like you said, he finally just had to do it the way that others have been doing it, right? So maybe that's how it's gonna go. But just so many cautions in this race, and this truck race was a mess. Similar to how people were complaining about the cautions in Cup last week at Coda. I mean, there were just so many accidents and things that took place. I mean, that last lap wreck, I mean, you can say, they're fighting for the win and everything, but at the same time, like, I mean, can't really, it's hard to blame a guy for keeping it to the floor, to try to win. You're trying to go for your first win, of course, but on the other end, like, all the other stuff that, happened there, you had guys crashing off, coming off turn 4. One driver, Dean Thompson, getting taken by a stretcher to the hospital ambulance, and then he got released later on, and he's okay. And he said he was drinking a beer at home, but still issues there. Especially, I think they said the spotters there. Some of these drivers did not have their regular spotter in the stands, and I think some teams even employed some of the IndyCar spotters to kind of assist in the effort for this race. But just so many cautions throughout the end, and just really drag out things. I mean, there is 20% of the race run under caution in this race, and of course, you had 12 cautions for 36 laps. So yeah, definitely a lot of stuff happening. You had the last lap incident, of course, which was the caution. Then Roger Carruth crashed or had an accident in the backstretch. The big wreck off turn 4 with Matt Crafton and other drivers. Another big crash with Daniel Dye and other drivers. Then the 4 truck accident that included Dean Thompson. So yeah, definitely a lot of incidents in this race, especially in the last 30 laps of this. A lot of things happening. So I saw. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to too much. I think I was looking at the basketball game on Saturday, but definitely not the ideal type of race that you want to have for the truck series, and especially with so many things, cautions, wrecks happening. Makes it look very amateurish, which it's truck series, so I guess it is, but probably dragged out a lot of it that didn't need to be dragged out, just like what we talked about last week. And of course, gotta feel for Nick Sanchez, because he hasn't won yet, but he's been close. I mean, he's been up front in a lot of these races, of course. Been up front here at Texas, ran up front at Atlanta, led laps at Las Vegas as well. So he's been up there. He just hasn't been able to convert it into a win. Led 168 laps Texas, and ends up on the back hook of a tow truck. So nothing to show for that effort there. But yeah, definitely a unfortunate situation there, and just a bad race. Typical of trucks at Texas, and thankfully at least the tire compound did not affect the IndyCar race there the next day. So we'll just have to live with it and move on. But yeah, just a typical truck race overall that we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. With and goes into the whole lack of respect, as you mentioned, deal. I mean, Hamlin went and used up JJ Haley yesterday. I mean, proving once again his own hypocrisy in that sense. Um, I forget what I had a thought and I forgot it, but for the trucks, I mean, that race was kind of a bore, and I guess they need a grip. It's why they had the grip strip out there. That might have been a better race and less wrecking, but That's part of it. I mean, the Dean Thompson, that's what it was. The Dean Thompson wreck was complete cluster because, yeah, sure, he was swapped ends. He got loose. There was issues. He was having essentially the best race of his career. And then he hits the right side on the wall coming out of 4, and he spins out. But then you have you have but it's not Spencer. Yeah, Spencer, or no, not Spencer Boyd. Matt Mills, Arca braked into him. And then Armani Williams and Trey Hutchins went and added in, and Arca braked into that crash too. So Thompson usually is one that is a caution because of sucking. In this case, he was a caution because of overdriving, and then paid the price for all those hits, getting hit on both sides of the truck and destroying that thing. But at least he's all right. That's good. If I'm any of those drivers or their crew chiefs or spotters that hit him, I mean, you're in the back of the field and the yellow is out. Like, I get that there's smoke and whatever, but you should be running at a lower rate of speed. You're coming in full bore and you're going to go and nail a stationary vehicle. It's not going to be good. But it fits like what you said about the amateurish nature of the driving. And that's where there's been a regression in the driving talent and standard in all of NASCAR's major series, and then you added an ARCA as well. So I mean, you're right. You can't be surprised at this point with the way they drive. Just means more equipment's going to get destroyed. The points going to the Bristol Dirt Race sees Ty Majeski can take over the points lead from Zane Smith by 3, and Ben Rhodes, Christian Eckes, Matt Crafton round out the top 5. Enfinger falls and Crafton swap spots. Enfinger is 6th now. Chase Purdy moves into the top 10. In 7th, Corey Heim 8th. Nick Sanchez 9th, even with the falling out late. Tyler Ankrum is 10th overall in points, but would be, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Corey Heim would actually be the cutoff. Purdy and Heim would be the cutoff for the playoffs right now. Sanchez is 9 points back, and Ankrum is 23 points back. Yeah, that's what it looks. Yeah, 23 points back. And then I'm in Hocevar there. He's in. So those are truck points, and got a wild card at Bristol Dirt coming up. Formula One ran at the Australian Grand Prix, and it wasn't straightforward for Max Verstappen initially in the race, but once he got clean air and track position, it was all she wrote. Plus, of course, Formula One and Air Infinite Wisdom threw 3 different red flags during the race and just caused more chaos after those red flags. The Albon incident was definitely not good, especially in rolling back in the traffic, and Nico Hulkenberg being quoted as saying he had a Code Brown moment driving by the Albon Williams. They red flagged it because of sand being on the track, and so, I don't know. They didn't give an explanation for why they had the red flag, and then they ended up having 3, and it looked pretty bleak in that sense. There was also there was a track invasion so early in the race, so there's definitely a lot of cluster F actions that were going on at Melbourne this past weekend, but in the end, the same result as we have seen for most of the last year plus in Formula One. Fish Lips getting another victory. Lewis Hamilton benefiting from staying out while they had given George Russell, who had taken the lead on the start, a choice of strategy. he goes and makes a change to hard tires to go long, and soon after that, that was a reaction to Alex Albon's incident, and then coming out of the pits and driving around for a few corners, they red flagged the race, which goes to something that I despise greatly is the way that they have the red flag procedures. In Formula One, you can essentially rebuild a car within whatever parameters you can touch. If there's enough time, you can put new tires on. You're taking away the strategy aspect of it, which to me that's a big part of what makes Formula One have its allure is that strategy thing. Now because they don't have fuel, you don't do fueling, you only have the tires, it's maybe tire strategy, but usually everybody goes on the same one by the end of the race to limit the amount of pit stops. Trying to go and get the results for the Australian Grand Prix, the Rolex Australian Grand Prix. Red Bull's Verstappen wins by less than 2/10 over Sir Lewis Hamilton. Alonso's third and fourth for both Aston Martins. Sergio Perez from tailback goes and finishes fifth. Lando Norris sixth, and Oscar Piastri in his home race eighth. So McLaren gets double points. They're off their duck early in the season. Nico Hulkenberg seventh, and Zhou Guanyu ninth, and Yuki Tsunoda 10th. There are only 12 cars classified at the end of the race. So there was, because of some of the incidents and stuff that went on, Logan Sargent ended up finishing 16th, just behind his fellow rookie Nick DeVries from the AlphaTauri team. So there's that. Charles Leclerc got spun out, I think, on lap 2 of the race. So his nightmare of a season continues, and just trying to go and make the most out of the situation. I mean, you got Leclerc, and I'm trying to look for Sainz ended up finishing dead last of the drivers that were on the track in 12th. That it's been a really bad start to the year for Ferrari, but on the flip side, Verstappen continues to have control and basically dictate how things are going to go in regards to himself and what he's looking for another world championship this year, Josh.
Yeah, I think this race here, I mean, proves Verstappen still has what it takes, to win the championship with his pace that he had throughout the race. I mean, you talked about Ferrari. I mean, I was very intrigued by Carlos Sainz. He had a lot of good pace throughout the entire event, up until the very end, and he'd gotten up into fourth place, and I really thought that he might be able to challenge Alonso for top 3, but he just wasn't able to get up there really. And once he got up to fourth, I think his momentum and his pace kind of leveled out compared to Alonso and Hamilton. So I thought they would be able to make something of that, and then of course gets penalized for the last wreck with Alonso, getting into Alonso on the last restart, which of course proves you got a bunch of drivers, the entire field onto a narrow track. You get a bunch of guys like that, and then they're bound to have an accident, which ended up happening in a very big accident, because not only did Alonso spin out, but the Alpine cars took themselves out, and then Lance Stroll finished, or well, he ran off the racetrack and spun out too. So yeah, that was a very interesting finish there. Of course, with all the red flag stuff. the red flags, definitely not sure how much of those were necessary. I think obviously the first one and the second one probably not necessary, and then of course the third one was necessary, but that's because, well, he had a giant accident at the end, so not able to you know finish everything on the right conditions. But yeah, I mean, this was a very controversial race because of the red flags. And I think, with that, and also, some of the safety cars and things that happened in this race, with the wild restarts at the end, kind of leaves you with the same feeling. We talked about the trucks earlier, and then talked about Cup at Coda last week. Kind of makes you feel like the same thing. And I think, Jensen Button was on the broadcast. Gunther, of course, back from Coda and everything. Jensen and him both at Coda, one racing and the other in the broadcast. And now Gunther back on the pit box for Haas makes him feel like that, oh, maybe we didn't really leave Texas and we're still in Texas. And maybe you can argue that Australia is just like the Australian Texas, I guess. But maybe they felt like they're still NASCAR in Texas, because it definitely had a lot of similarities there at the end. But yeah, I mean, the red flag with Alex Albon probably not necessary, even though there's a lot of gravel. I think maybe you can just make that a full course yellow, and I think with 4 course yellow you can just go clean up the track while half the field is on the other end, clean it up and move on and tow him away. I think you don't have to red flag the entire field and start over. I don't think it's necessary. Definitely think that wasn't necessary. And then the second yellow or red flag for Magnussen, or no, for Hulkenberg losing a tire, or no, Magnussen losing a tire, and then the tire falling off and basically getting stuck on the racetrack. Don't think that was necessary. Again, I think probably a full course yellow for that, and just move on and clean it up and move on. You don't have to red flag the race. And I think the drivers' opinions kind of affected that, based on how surprised some of them were that they would red flag for what happened to Magnussen, and it only leads to what happened on the final restart of the race. Final green restart of the race, I should say. So it's definitely a controversial way to end the race, and of course the most red flags that we've had in F1 race. So definitely not good there, and definitely think that they're taking advantage of the opportunity of red flag for the standing start again, and having a manipulated finish. Kind of feels like NASCAR. Kind of feels like how they do it in the stateside. So got to question the motivation for the red flags from the race control there. But yeah, this definitely had a lot in this race. I mentioned Sainz, of course, the pace that he had, thought he would be able to challenge for a podium. Well, Sergio Perez also had a lot of pace. Started from the pits, of course, from the garage and everything, but still came back to take 5th place. He had a lot of pace. He was passing guys throughout the field, throughout the race. Of course, Alonso was really good, and I thought maybe he would be able to overtake Hamilton for second, but Hamilton was able to hold him off there and keep the gap. Throughout the event, I think throughout the race, he was able to keep it from not getting closer than a second to him. So credit to Hamilton for protecting when he needed to. And being able to finish second there. Of course, teammate George Russell getting kind of screwed over by the red flag and the strategy that they gave him versus his teammate there. So, yeah, that's a wild Grand Prix, of course, and not the wild that we'd have expected. Just a lot of controversy and things like that we don't really want to see. That kind of mar the race and take away from it. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot that happened, and kind of crazy, for F1 drivers, to red flag 3 times, and then, you get out of the car and relax, and then all of a sudden you got to go back into it and everything, and then you got to get your focus level back into place. So yeah, glad that I guess that the guys that the last yellow, they didn't get screwed over by the running order, and then even that caused confusion. Of course, Alonso, Stroll both gaining back their position based on them not being able to complete one sector after the restart and everything. So at least they kind of get retribution for that, I guess. But at the same time, just a lot that happened that was probably unnecessary. So um, yeah, definitely a wild one, and hopefully the next one isn't quite as controversial as this one was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's stuff on motorsport.com about the race and some of the things that have to be looked at for not only the way they um, uh, run the race differently and manage. Um, yeah, so there was definitely issues there. Yeah, issues with the red flags, which affected the race, penalty on Carlos Sainz that left him finishing last on the road instead of being on being in podium contention, like you were talking about. And I mean, it's they are American owned, and they're taking a lot of cues from NASCAR, and those aren't good ones, to say the least. They have a lot to think about and a lot to adjust, and they have time because they won't be racing until the end of the month because there's no race between the Australian Grand Prix and Baku because the Chinese Grand Prix disappeared yet again. So they'll have time to get into all of that. So I kind of look through all of that. So yeah, so that is it for the race, the Australian Grand Prix, as I mentioned. I mean, Lewis Hamilton getting that podium. Um, Also, I mean, to get his first podium of the year, Russell taking the lead at the start and Hamilton passing Verstappen crying wolf about being raced hard. What a shock. Um, by the black guy because he can't take it. But Lewis Hamilton ended up going out there and staying up there, holding off Alonso. Um, he got past like he was standing still by Verstappen, but was able to hold off Alonso. Getting that second place finish is great momentum going into this break. The car is still not amazing, but they've been getting better with it slowly but surely. Once they get the new upgrade at Baku, I'm sure the Mercedes will look more like the vast majority of the rest of the cars on the grid. Um, we'll see how close it is to the Red Bull in terms of side pod design and some of the other things. But then how will Mercedes factor in at that point? I mean, Russell had a chance to get his second career victory, and then not only did he lose that because of the whole first red flag situation, but then his engine blew up. So that was unfortunate for him. I mean, Leclerc continues to have terrible luck, and Ferrari's luck this year. People want to talk about last year when they were crashing out of races and giving away things on qualifying and all that, and then they couldn't hold off or get back to Verstappen and Red Bull. Well, now they don't even have that issue because they can't even finish races, and they have other things that they're doing that are, when for a team of Ferrari's caliber to be making these errors and having these problems all the time, it's not a good look for them. And for Sainz and for it's what might have been for Leclerc, he only ran a lap, so it's not like we really know what he would have been able to do in that race either way. The point standings as we wait a few weeks to get racing at Baku. Verstappen with 2 wins and a second leads the points by 15 over Perez. Then 15 over Perez, who has the second, first, and fifth. Fernando Alonso, with 3 consecutive third place finishes, is third in points. And Lewis Hamilton's fourth, 2 fifths, and a second. Carlos Sainz fifth. Stroll, Russell, Norris, Hulkenberg, and Leclerc in 10th. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both scoring points for the first time this year for McLaren, which has been a rough year. Josh brought up the Perez start in pit lane for the issues he's had with the power unit or other things. And credit to him, but he can't have those issues every week and think that they're going to be able to fade it once some of these other teams kind of start coming around with their upgrades and trying to get pace back that that Red Bull has had for a while now, essentially since 2021. All right, so let's get in a roundup time. Formula 2 race at Albert Park for the first time ever. The sprint race results saw Dennis Hauger get the victory over Jack Crawford, the American, Kushmani, the Indian driver, and Artur Leclerc and Zane Maloney round out the top 5. Hajar, Bierman, Vesti, Nissani, and Vayshore round out the top 10. There's some real furniture movers like Nissani, Cordial. Jan Daruvla had issues, finished 17th. Pocher crashed and finished last in that first race. In the sprint race, in the feature race, Ayumu Iwasa gets his second victory of the year. Pocher goes and flips from dead last to second, under a second behind. Artur Leclerc rounds out the podium, so Dams takes first and third. Vesti, Maloney, top 5. Daruvula, 6th. Vayshore, Doohan, and Kushmani, and Juan Manuel Correa round out the top 10. Hauger ends up falling out of the feature race. So that's something there. The standings heading to Baku here in 4 weeks' time. Iwasa retakes the points lead, 58 points over Pocher's 50. Frederick Vesti scored in 4 consecutive races. Didn't score anything at Sakir, but has scored points in both Jeddah and Australia in both sprint and feature. Beauchamp third and tied with Artur Leclerc. Daruvula is a point behind in 6th. Hauger is 3 points behind in 7th. Maloney 4 points in 8th. Kushmani, Richard Vayshore round out the top 10. Now Jack Doohan is in that mix too because he's only 5 points behind Maloney and 6 behind Hauger. 8, 9. So it's very close, essentially from 4th all the way to 11th right now in the points. So something to look at. Once they kind of get going again, they're going to be really busy. After Baku, once they get to Imola, they're going to be racing 3 weeks in a row. And then with Imola, Monte Carlo, and Barcelona, and then they'll take a month off before they play or drive at Spielberg, and they have back-to-backs, Spielberg and then Silverstone, before they run out the last part of the season there. Formula 3 ran there as well for the first time. The results in Melbourne, the sprint race saw Zach O'Sullivan, the Williams development driver, getting a win over Sebastian Montoya. Paul Aaron third, Meany fourth, Beganovic fifth. Let's see, Saucy Cruiser Man, Kalen Frederick finished 10th. Villa Gomez or Brown, yeah. So Hunter Yeany finished 22nd. So there is that. In the feature race, Bortoletto for Trident gets a win over Gregoire Saucy and Mini. Fornioli is fourth, O'Sullivan fifth. Aaron, Marty, Browning, Barnard, and Christian Mansell round out your top 10. The standings before they go back to Imola have even longer break than Formula 2. Bortoletto has a 20-point lead on Saucy. 20-point lead and a 30-point lead on Beganovic and Mini. So, and then Marty fifth. Goth, Aaron, Zach O'Sullivan with his solid weekend moves up to eighth. And Fornioli ninth, Browning 10th, Montoya is 11th. Yeah, Kalen Frederick is 14th in points. And trying to see, there's a bunch of drivers that have not scored points at all this year, but then it's only 2 races in, so kind of hard to go and get that wound up about it. So that's it for Formula 3. In next thing we will do is Supercars at Albert Park as well. It was a Red Bull 888 benefit. While other people were fast in practice, and then it was Shane Van Gisbergen who won the first race, and Brody Kostecki ended up going and taking wins in races 4 and 5, and then Van Gisbergen's Red Bull teammate, Chevy Camaro teammate, Brock Feeney, won race 6. So 4 races they had over the weekend, differing lengths. The point standings with a long break for them is Brody Kostecki leading the points by 32 over Chaz Mostert. Shane Van Gisbergen, even with the penalty he got in the first Grand Prix of the year, is third. Andre Heimgardner fourth. Will Brown fifth. Cam Waters, Brock Feeney just behind those guys in 6th and 7th. You got Reynolds, LeBrock, and Rice forward. The best Dick Johnson car is 11th with Will Davidson. Anton De Pasquale is 18th. So it tells you how bad things are this year for them. And Erebus leads the team's championship by 101 points over Red Bull. And then it's basically out of reach otherwise. I'm trying to think who Erebus runs these days. Penrite. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if they're up there, then it means, yeah, that's the Coca-Cola cars. That's why. Both Coca-Cola cars are in the top 5 in points. That's why. All right. Next will be MotoGP and Moto2 in Argentina this past weekend. Trying to go into bikes. Zarco expected chance to win in wet. Argentina. Right. Go and get into that. MotoGP results. The results of the Argentinian Grand Prix. Marco Bezzecchi gets his first career Grand Prix victory in wet conditions, leading a Ducati podium sweep amongst 3 different teams. Bezzecchi gets the win for VR46 team. over Johan Zarco in second and Alex Marquez in third. Franco Morbidelli ends up finishing fourth, Jorge Martin fifth, giving Ducati 4 out of the top 5. Jack Miller sixth, Fabio Quartararo seventh, Luca Marini eighth, Alex Rins ninth, and Fabio Di Gianantonio in 10th. Brad Binder and Pecco Bagnaia both fell during the race and were affected by the end of the round with issues. They only had 17 bikes at this race because of a lot of the withdrawals because of the injuries suffered earlier in the weekend. 2 weeks time between this race in Argentina and the race at Circuit of the Americas Grand Prix. Trying to get into Moto 2 and see what's going on, or Moto 2, F2. Trying to get into that. Full Moto 2, Moto 3 results. Australian Gardner's, yeah. That's to reload that. Trying to see if I can actually get something there. Obviously cannot. So Moto 2 shortened race because of rain. Tony Arbolino wins in the Moto 2 race over Alonso Lopez. Jake Dixon rounds out the podium. Kenneth Garcia, Darren Binder, Salek, Chantra, Arenas, and Lowe's top 10. Joe Roberts ended up finishing 14th. Sean Dillon Kelly only lasted one lap and fell out on a crash, probably. Unfortunate for him there at in the Moto 2 race because of the wet conditions. NHRA was at Pomona this past weekend for the Winter Nationals, which saw Justin Ashley winning Top Fuel, Matt Hagan winning in Funny Car again, second time this year. Dallas Glenn wins in Pro Stock. Joey Severance in Top Alcohol Dragster. Tony Stewart ended up racing this weekend and didn't have a great qualifying run, but ended up winning a round of racing. We'll go backwards here for Pro Stock. Glenn and Dallas Glenn ends up getting the victory in Pro Stock. Let's see. He ends up going and beating Matt Hartford. Was a slower reaction time, but not by much. And by 60 feet, was still in Hartford's favor. But after that, every increment is in the favor of Dallas Glenn to finish with a 654 to 6209.92 miles an hour to get the victory in this race. Top Fuel, Austin Prock and Justin Ashley, both second generation or even more later generation in case of Prock. Justin Ashley gets the victory. Trees Prock he was slower to 60 foot, but then started gaining back after that. Ran 371 with a 330.63 miles an hour. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan defeats Ron Capps, defending world champion. Gets a really big gap on the tree, and then issues for Capps' Napa Toyota. He shuts the thing down. Matt Hagan ends up 396 with a 328.06 miles an hour in Funny Car. The ladder for... You can't show that. Trying to see in top alcohol dragster. Uh, Tony Stewart ended up qualifying 13th and ended up going and getting a round win in top alcohol. Joey Severance, the winner there in that race. Yeah, Tony Stewart had a much better reaction time, slower to 60, but ended up getting ahead after at 3:30 and beyond. Uh, Madison Payne shut it off, uh, unfortunately, to go and see a competitive run, but Tony Stewart's 5:29 with a 1:272.56 miles an hour. And that's round one. In round two, I worked with Ron Anderson, who then promptly after helping out goes and gets a victory over Tony Stewart, knocks him out in the second round. So we're making progress there. So it's all you can ask for from Smoke in a brand new endeavor that he's embarking on here for his career. So let's get into the Bristol dirt race. We'll start with the trucks, Josh. They have a deeper field than usual. 41 trucks for 36 spots. 2G2G pieces of crap are going to be out there this weekend. What is it? A fourth Nice truck was going to be entered, but they went and withdrew. Some of the cup drivers that are going to be in this race or special, like people who are in other disciplines and coming over. Jonathan Davenport, the late model champion on dirt for a few years now. He's been a championship favorite, winning a lot of races. He's going to run double duty, running the truck for Spire, who failed to qualify at Texas, who failed to qualify. The 7 truck failed to qualify at COTA last week because of a tire issue. Then Chase Briscoe is going to be in the 22 for AM Racing with Production Alliance Group on the side. And trying to see who else or some other, I guess, special there. William Byard will be the 51 for Cowbush Motorsports. And what is it? Stuart Friesen, coming off of a great run at Texas, brings his wife back out to run in the 62 truck. And then Joey Logano will be running a Door Sport Racing number 66 Ford there. So, Josh, floor is yours. Who do you look at as your choice to win on Saturday night, and guess a wild card as well for the Bristol Dirt?
Well, I'm gonna look at a Cup guy here. I think Joey Logano comes out and wins the Bristol Dirt Truck race on Saturday night. I mean, there's a lot of good entries here. You've got guys that are coming from outside the series besides besides the Cup guys. So it's kind of like the COTA, how COTA attracted a lot of road course specialists here. This track in this configuration, attracts a lot of the dirt guys from around to try to, compete in this and in Cup race on Sunday. But I'm going to go with, Joey Logano. I think, in a Thor Sport, Ford truck, he's definitely going to be a competitive favorite here in the truck race. Wild card, wild card for me. I'm gonna go with damn. There's a lot of guys you can pick here. for this. I'm gonna go with this is tough. I does Tyler Ingram count as a wild card in this? That's who I feel like picking for this.
Isn't he 10th in
Is he
points?
10th in points now?
Something like that. Let me see. He is 10th in points. So I'm trying to look here. So first 14. What is it then? Another 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 drivers who have the first all 5 races of the season. I think after Carson Hocevar, the cutoff is after Carson Hocevar. To be fair,
Okay. I mean, I can amend, I guess.
yeah,
Well, let's see. I mean, the driver points, like you said, after Hocevar and Anchor. I mean, if we want to go for a full time guy, then I don't know. I suppose we could pick like Stuart. I mean, Stuart Friesen. He could be a wild card. He's 13th in points, but I mean he's a dirt guy. You could pick him, but you know what? I'll just go with the Spire car. I pick Jonathan Davenport. That's officially what I pick as a wild card.
it's all good. Yeah, it's a good idea because actually, you've now I'm all of a sudden becoming a person who picks Stu Ball. He's still out of that, or out of the. He's on the second half, so he's gonna be my wild card pick. My race winner will be. I could go Homer and say Chase Briscoe. I mean, he's run well in the trucks on the dirt. At every time, whether it was Eldora or it was at the Knoxville the one year. He's and a lot of people are looking at him as a favorite for the Cup Series race because of his performance from last year. But I'm going to go and take William Byron because he's in the 51 truck. He has tons of momentum going on this year. He's feeling good. So I think he's a likely person to go and get that win, get that momentum going into Sunday's race and trying to go and get yet another win early in this 2023 season. The Cup race, the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol takes place 37 cars for 40 spots. The Barry, of course, will be back again in the 9. Other than that, Jonathan Davenport, the aforementioned, will be making his Cup Series debut this weekend in a Nutrien Ag Solutions number 13 Chevy. Trying to see Brez Tree, Advan Out on the 1, Brez Tree on the 3, Busch Light back on Harvick's car, King's Hawaiian for Brad Keselowski, Nations Guard for Corey LaJoy, Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen for Kyle Busch, Josh Perry will be driving the Hooters car, which is pretty cool. And even though the paint scheme isn't, Denny Hamlin back in a FedEx car again after I don't know how many weeks of not being in one. And Briscoe will be in the Magical Vacation Planner number 14. Allmendinger and Haley have Gain and Tide respectively on their cars, so that's interesting sponsorship activation. Butcher back in Fastenal, Auto Owners Insurance for Truex, DeWalt Power Stack for Christopher Bell, Dex Imaging for Harrison Burton in 21. Let's see some of these other ones. Beatty Cash for 38 of Todd Gilliland. Sunseeker Resort for Noah Gregson. And then Eric Jones in the Club Wyndham 43. Sirius XM for Tyler Reddick. Irish Spring for Richard. And Keebler is going to have the Interstate Batteries car. Ty Dillon Ferris Commercial Mowers. BJ McLeod Gunk. And then jockey will be on Daniel Suarez's number 99. So this one's is pretty difficult. There isn't a whole lot of data. It's only a couple of years racing on the dirt at Bristol. And so to go and quantify what's going on there, 2 races there. Logano won the first year. Kyle Busch won the second year, or last year, because Chase Briscoe tried to pass for the win and instead cleaned out Tyler Reddick. So that wasn't great. And after Reddick had led 99 laps, I think, of last year's race. Let's see here. Yeah, Briscoe led 59 laps. Average finish of 21st. Oh, man. Yeah, as it stands right now, the average finisher. Oh boy. For me, I'm gonna go and pick Tyler Reddick. He's got the experience on dirt. He's free rolling now with the win at Coda. Just want to get more. You want to get more bonus points. You want to get those playoff points, and it's a perfect opportunity for him at a track that he's definitely one of the likely favorites at. I picked Tyler Reddick for that one, and trying to go through the driver points standings here at for coming into Bristol. Sorry, got 33 drivers or 32 drivers that have run every race, or 33 drivers that have run every race. Justin Haley now has gotten back into positive points for last week. I picked Tyler Reddick, and you know what? It's out there, because if you talk about, what is it, the top 16 essentially, I'm going to pick Chase Briscoe. Guy's a dirt racer at the core. He's a USAC guy. It's an opportunity race for him to go and kind of switch the narrative of what this early season has been for him. Go and get a win, stabilize their situation, and give themselves a chance to get out of this rut that they've been in all year. So as I type my picks, Josh, floor is yours for your picks at Bristol Dirt.
Yeah, I've got, I'm going to go with Alex Bowman the showman, winning on Sunday here at Bristol Dirt. He's a dirt guy too. He's been racing midgets for a bit, and he's got his effort, at the Chili Bowl and whatnot. Of course, there's a little bit where he raced the 55 Allied Dirt car, and of course Jimmy Johnson last year tested a private test, I think, at Millbridge Speedway last fall. Of course, it's about the time where Bowman got his concussion and had to skip a couple of races, or 3 races, because of that. But he's been quietly running really well, and I think he is good enough on dirt and has a good enough car behind him to be able to win. So I'm going to go with him. He's ran in the top 10 every race but one race. That was at Atlanta this year. So I think he finally breaks through in the win column and maybe opens it up in the points standings. Wild card for me. I mean, I'm gonna go with uh, Justin Haley wild card. Um, I think it's kind of really on sentiment, I guess. I mean, we can go look at his statistics really quickly here and see, but I think he's a solid finisher in general uh, in the Cup Series. Let's see, 2022 Bristol Dirt for him finished in 14th. So, yeah, that's a fairly good result. In 21, when they ran it the first time, he didn't run it, so he only ran last year, Dirt Bristol. But I think Justin Haley can potentially pull off a top 15 finish, like your pick with Chase Briscoe. You're justifying it by the technicality, but hey, it's a high floor, so and he's a dirt guy anyways, so gotta take that one. So yeah, definitely respect the pick there. But yeah, it should be an interesting race. Personally, I'm not really a fan of the Dirt Bristol anymore. I think it was okay like the first year that they ran it, but I feel like now it's just overblown. And also, kind of the switch from dirt to back to concrete, I think is maybe not. It's not an efficient thing, and also, I think it's probably messing up the track surface. Like over time, I mean, it was okay. Bristol's been fairly decent the last couple of years on pavement, but I think over time might damage the pavement, having to continuously put dirt on top of concrete and then take it off, put it off and off and again. So not really a fan of that, and I think there's probably better use. Of course, they talked about potentially making North Wilkesboro a dirt track, which I think they're not going to do that because obviously, racetrack revival happened last year. And of course, I'm wearing the North Wilkesboro right now, so definitely out of the cards there. But I feel like it'd be better off if Cup actually went to a legitimate dirt track like Eldora or even Knoxville, although that hasn't really worked out for the Truck Series lately. So I feel like one of the more shorter, circular dirt tracks probably works out better for Cup Series where they're not really designed to run on dirt, and they're having to make heavy modifications to be able to make it happen and everything. So we'll see how that goes, and of course, yeah, we'll see how the car handles this year, Bristol Dirt and everything. But yeah, should be an interesting race for sure.
Yeah, definitely be on Easter Sunday. They'll do the heat races on Saturday, weather permitting. Considering they're Tennessee and of course the Masters in Augusta, Georgia. There is weather issues expected for the Masters every day of the tournament, so that it falls in line with the whole weekend at Bristol, which I think starts on Friday night with the trucks coming in and then having to do all their stuff on Saturday before going and racing on Sunday. It'll be a very condensed schedule, and everything will be it'll be asking a lot, even if everything was dry. We'll see what happens. That we'll come back next week and let you know what happened. It's time for your sim segment, Josh. Let us know about your exploits on iRacing, along with other stuff that's going on in regard to sim racing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, streamed the Cup Gen 4 car race at Charlotte's Motor Speedway, on Friday night. So ran that. Ran pretty well. I mean, of course, finished second. Finished, top five, top three, and everything. And I mean, started I think top 15. So made my way up through the field. Of course, a lot of yellows happened and stuff. Pit strategy, tried to save on tires throughout it, and conserve. And then was able to get into the top 10 that way by staying out rather than taking tires early and everything. Of course, towards the end, was up in I think sixth place, and then I think the leader ended up spinning the tires, lost the lead, and then was just like all over the place from basically from the start finish line all the way through turn two at Charlotte, and just trying to make up for spinning the tires and losing position, and then ended up spinning out and everything, and I barely got into the back of him trying to avoid him and everything, so it took a little count of damage there, but still was able to get through that, and eventually, some other guys ended up spinning out in front of me as well off of restarts. We had a lot of cautions and everything, but ended up getting up to second, sniffing the lead, but never really getting able to really challenge for it. I think restarts are really tough, especially on worn tires. You really have to be very gentle with the throttle on restarts, especially starting off in second gear. So there's a lot of power in those cars, and if you just mash the gas, you risk on restarts, you risk spinning out or getting run over, and so I was really careful there, and I you know figure out a way to restart better and keep up with the leaders. I definitely think that can probably maybe challenge a little bit more, and stay alongside, because I think if I stay alongside the leader and use the top and got around him and pinched him down on the bottom, would have been able to get around him and potentially steal the win. But fell back to third actually on the last restart, but is able to take it away. Guy in front of me got loose coming off of turn two, and was able to pick up second once again, so finished second there. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough car and everything. You gotta really, really be on your toes. It's tempting to run the top like the whole time, but really you want to stay away from that as much as possible. You burn up the tires if you run. I mean, because there's speed up there, but at the cost of burning up your tires. And actually, one of the other races I did, I ran at that track, just ran the top a little bit too aggressively and ended up burning up the right rear and not having a whole lot of grip. So it's a really fine balance between using the top to get around guys and then coming back to the bottom to save your tires. On that track. So yeah, it's a really fun car so far. Trying out. Definitely recommend. I mean, it's free, so you're able to run in that car if you have the base membership, I think. But definitely a challenge, and looking forward to the next week and the rest of the schedule on the Cup Gen 4 car. Otherwise, iRacing on Saturday, since it was April Fool's Day. You got all these April Fool's jokes coming around. They went out and posted a legitimate post, and they are currently testing rain physics. They posted a picture of a screenshot with rain clearly on the track. So wet weather physics currently on the horizon. Looks like finally, after I think years of rumors about them putting on wet weather conditions, finally looks like maybe soon. I don't know exactly when, but very soon in the near future we could see wet weather rain physics in iRacing finally. So I feel like the code has kind of been there. If you look at the old NR 2003 NASCAR Racing 2003 track configuration INI files, they always had a setting, I think, where you could like classify the track or the weather as wet, but they just never implemented the physics part of it. So I feel like some of the foundations of it has probably been there for a while, but they've just never finalized it. Obviously, there's the graphics part of it as well. Got to be able to replicate the the rain physics or the graphics and everything. The obviously the reflections and stuff probably take some impact on the graphics that they had to really balance and try to make sure that there's not a lot of hit in that department. So sure, there's still some more testing, but looking forward to seeing if that's ever possible, and maybe someday maybe see me on stream or see somebody else try it out. They'll do the whole Colton Herta slide that he did last year at Indianapolis Road Course. So we'll see if something like that ever comes out, or running NASCAR on wet weather, potentially that would be interesting to see that as well, especially since they've now announced the wet weather package on short tracks for NASCAR and on road courses. So that should be interesting to see that happen. Otherwise, I think the so of course Indy 500, the iRacing officially held Indy 500 not happening. Of course, we've been over that many other times, and of course, everything. But I guess another league that I found online, the Majors Series. They're a setup garage. They provide coaching and they provide free setups and paid setups if you want to download the paid version of the setup for that track for that week for Cup Car, IndyCar, or whatever. They got all that, and I think they've got a league on top of that where they run and they are running I guess their own version of the Indy 500, but they're not going to use the IR18 car. Instead, they're going to use the IR01, which is basically Dallara and iRacing collaborated a couple years ago to develop their own exclusive car that kind of was supposed to be like a substitute for the Formula One car in case they couldn't get real Formula One cars scanned for licensing, and so it's kind of got like kind of the same handling characteristics and engine characteristics as the 2004 2006 era, V10 V12 era of F1, especially in the engine notes. It definitely sounds like that era. But they recently have reconfigured it to be able to compete on oval. So I guess they've gone and made some oval setups for this car, and iRacing has a series on there where you can run like 50 lap races on like some of the ovals and with this car. But the point being is that this Majors Series, they've gone in, they're going to run they call it the Speedway 500, but of course everyone knows the Indy 500 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and iRacing with the Dallara IR01. Should be interesting. Of course, saw some clips online running at Texas, running at Auto Club. I think somebody tried to see if they could break the closed course qualifying record of 241 miles an hour by Jill DeFerrin back in 2000, and I think they ran 243 in the game, so definitely running up into the 240s and 250s in the draft. And saw iRacing Texas, they were running up 255, so definitely pushing those kart speeds from 2001 where the drivers were blacking out to too high G-forces. So definitely should be interesting to see that in iRacing and see that type of racing at Indianapolis. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll be able to be free for that because that's starting at the end of April, early May time frame. So hopefully, I'll be able to be free to be able to run that and compete on there and everything. And we'll put an entry if everything time wise lines up for that. So, I mean, real quick, go over schedule for iRacing this week, what I might run or try to do. So yeah, it's already up there on the stream, actually. Let's see, we got race up next, series list. We'll go by oval, Bristol Motor Speedway dirt. Of course, you got the NASCAR Class A fixed, Class A Gen 4 Cup fixed at Bristol Motor Speedway paved. And then the rest of the NASCAR series, Bristol Motor Speedway dirt. NASCAR Legends series actually at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so on the NASCAR oval there, so that might be interesting. Got that. Yeah, I think that's all for now for that. Road series, what's eligible? Got the Formula Ford Rookie Series at Summit Point Raceway, Indy Pro 2000s, Road America, Global MX5, Mazda MX5 at Summit Point Raceway. So that's what's up for this week. Oh yeah, and then also actually one other thing I did this past week on iRacing, I ran Formula Ford at Okayama Circuit, which is a road course in Japan, and actually won my race in that one. So that was pretty good. Haven't won a road in a while, so ran with the Formula Ford. So actually, I think it might be my first single seater win in iRacing, because I think all the other ones have been in closed, rooftop cars, the Mustang MX5, etc. So that's actually pretty good. But started in the back and then everybody else just kind of took themselves out. So either through running into each other or just plain spinning out. But I was able to hold on to it, throughout the race and picked up the win. So glad I was able to do that. Of course, probably should have streamed that one, but wanted to stream the cup stuff instead, so that's fine. But that's all I got this week for iRacing. Of course, when I do stream, you can also look at when I post on Twitter or subscribe on or follow on Twitch twitch.tv/usailor2. Go on there and watch the streams and watch all my driving stuff and everything. Of course, follow Twitter, JP Huffine. Go on there, see all my takes. And of course, Philip mentioned earlier, my take on oval racing and IndyCar. Of course, after the great Texas race that we saw on Sunday, adding on to wanting more ovals. Want to see Fontana, Michigan instead of Fontana because they're getting rid of Fontana, Pocono, Milwaukee Mile, and then add on Homestead. I think those are the 4 oval tracks that I'd like to see back on the schedule for IndyCar if they can do it, if they ever decide to put more ovals on the schedule. But yeah, see takes like that on my Twitter, of course, and of course our YouTube channel, Grip Strip Podcast on YouTube. Go and subscribe, comment, and interact with us on there, and watch our videos or listen in with the video in the background or whatever, however you want to consume that. So yeah, that's all I got this week. Of course, always glad to be on the show every week and be able to discuss everything happened throughout all the series that we talk about with you here.
A great job with your wins and competitive runs this past week, and we'll see what is going on. I mean, obviously it's a holiday week, so may not as much action. Hence, only the one race, of course. The NASCAR with their 2 races with Cup and trucks, but yeah, definitely. It's always great to be on and get this show, keep this show going. 163 episodes in, so always a fun time we have here, and we're going to keep it going together. And thanks to you as always, as my sidekick and right hand man, picking me up and helping me out all the time, and running the YouTube page as Josh does, helping with the sound on the audio stream and kind of doing some of the mixing on the back end there. For me, I'm at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. Let's see here I'm at and our Twitter at GripStripPod. We also have you can find the Grip Strip podcast basically anywhere that you find podcasts or listen to podcasts. You can find the podcast on Podbean. We're shared over there, but then we go and also post on philipgmatthew.com, my my blog site, so that you can find the show over there. And that's it. We will be back next week for episode 164. Well, actually, I'll be remiss. I did get to go to Yankee Stadium, be in the presence of an Aaron Judge home run, and Stanton won as well, Kyle Higashioka. So that was cool getting to the new stadium. It's a great place to be. I mean, it's expensive as hell, but it's cold as balls as well, which didn't help. But definitely had fun going there and seeing the captain going and getting his second home run of the year. And who knows? We'll see what happens. Got a calendar out of it, which had an error on it, which said DJ LeMahieu's number was the same as Aaron Judge's. So they printed 80,000 copies of that, at least, of those calendars, and they have 80,000 calendars that have that error. Somehow or another, I find that all the time. Means I probably should have been an editor. Once I got out of college, it might have made more sense. But with that, we'll be back next week for episode 164 of the Grip Strip podcast. Probably will be talking about the Masters a little bit at the afterwards, and anything sports. There's NFL draft is this month at the end of the month. Start kind of picking up a little bit more pace on that as the weeks go on. We'll go over all the racing, the Cup and trucks at Bristol, and whatever else is coming up next week on in the world of motorsports. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening. If you do celebrate Easter, and happy Easter, and Orthodox, the Easter is the following week. There's other stuff that I think I'm missing, so I apologize for that. But for everyone that does listen, thank you so much for supporting us here on the Grip Strip Podcast. Take care. God bless and goodbye.